Dale, thanks for coming in.
Oh, pleasure.
Thanks for talking to
Pleasure,
us.
thank you.
Give me your real name.
Lewis Dale King,
Okay. What's your date of birth?
January 9th, 1981.
Happy birthday.
Oh, thank
A little
you. Yeah,
bit
that's
later
right.
there,
Thank
but-
you. Nah,
all
thank
right.
you.
And where do you live now? What's your address?
I live 1447 Timberlake Drive out in Rosemount.
Okay. And prior to that, did you have where was your address? Did you have another address prior?
A few. Shoot, we live there almost 11, 12 years now.
Okay.
Lived in an apartment. I can't remember it. It's all
That's
haze
all right.
now, yeah.
That's all right. It's all a haze.
That's
I understand that haze stuff. And your parents, what was your parents' names, father and mother?
My dad's name is Lewis King, and my mom's name is Carolyn King.
Are you a junior or?
No. Just,
Okay, they stuck that Dale in there.
yeah,
Okay.
that's Dale is my mother's father's name,
Oh,
so that's how they wedged that in there.
Let's see how far back you can go.
Oh, okay.
Your father's parents' names.
Oh, we have Gerald as my father's father, and then oh shoot, we just called her grandma, but
All right.
oh, it'll come back to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
When it pops in, just blurt it out.
We'll do, yeah.
Were your parents from Sauter County?
Yes,
They were? Okay.
Dad is from Stockdale,
Uh-huh.
and then Mom's from Medford.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Where did your dad work? Is he retired now? Is he still living?
He's retired. He owned his own insurance claims adjusting business
Okay.
here in town. Yeah.
Did your mom work?
She worked for the school district here. She actually probably most known for doing a program called Reading Recovery at the old Lincoln School
Oh yeah.
when
yeah.
it was going.
Now your grandparents were they from Sauter County too on your father's side?
Yes, they're actually both of them are from Sauter County. Lillian is
Lillian,
my,
there we go.
There
We
we
knew
go.
it would come.
Yeah, she was kind of out in the Stockdale area, obviously, and then my mom's parents were just right there in Muletown.
Okay. And your mom's parent, what were their names? Your mom's
Dale and Clyde Coons.
Coons. Is it K-U? How do you spell Coons?
Kuhns.
Okay.
Yep.
And were they from? They were from Sauter County
Yep.
too. That Medford area or
Mhm.
whatever. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Granddad worked at the steel mill
Okay.
back in the day. Yeah.
Can you go back any further? Has anybody done a search ancestry thing? Or?
I cannot.
Yeah.
My parents have.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I can tell, I'd say at least 2-3 generations are Sauter County.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now, are you married, single, divorced,
married, yep.
separated, all the above?
Married. I'm married to Tia King.
What's her name?
Tia, T-I-A.
Okay.
Yeah. Her maiden name is Hairston.
Is she from Sauter County?
She is. We went to high school together,
Oh.
right across the street here.
Oh, darn.
Yeah.
Do you have any children?
We have two. Well, we have twins, so we have a boy and a girl, and they're 2.5.
What are their names?
Colt and Elizabeth.
Colt and Elizabeth.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful thing. Do you have any brothers and sisters?
I have an older sister.
What's her name?
Her name's Ann. She's 3 years older than I am. She's a teacher over in northern Kentucky, right outside of Cincinnati.
Okay. So, did you grow up in Portsmouth or Medford or?
I grew up in Portsmouth.
Okay.
Yeah, born and raised here in town.
Okay. And when you were going to school, high school, right across the street, you said, right? Portsmouth High School.
Yep.
Did you work anywhere? Did you have any summer jobs or anything?
I mowed a lot of lawns.
Yeah.
I mowed some lawns in the neighborhood. My best friend growing up, his parents owned a real estate company, and so we'd go and tear old houses out
Oh, yeah.
and do a bunch of demolition work.
Fun tearing stuff. Like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
For a kid.
Couldn't build worth a lick, but we could
Yeah.
tear stuff down. So, between, just the summer jobs, that mainly mowing lawns was probably more.
And you graduated from high school?
Yep, 1999.
What did you do then after you graduated?
So after I graduated PHS in 99, I went up to Capital University. And I had an Army ROTC scholarship.
Uh-huh.
And graduated from Capital in 2003.
Were you commissioned then?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. And what was your branch?
I was Army, and then I was a military intelligence.
Okay. Now, after what made you decide to go in the Army anyway? ROTC. Why did you follow that route?
So my dad is a Vietnam vet.
Okay.
And it's just one of those things. I always kind of knew that I wanted to go in the military. Wasn't smart enough to go to West Point, but I did get an ROTC scholarship, and I was just going to enlist. But my dad, I think he served 14 years enlisted, and he kind of said, no, if you're going to go in as an officer, which I didn't know the difference at the time. So it was just, I grew up, played Army in the Woods, watched all the old action movies from the 80s and 90s, and really just kind of felt like it was a calling to serve my country. Yeah.
So then after you, what was your major, by the way?
International relations.
Okay.
Was my major.
Now, how long were you in the Army?
I served 4 years active duty.
Okay. Did you have a reserve obligation?
I just had 4 years, but mainly majority of that was in the inactive reserve afterwards.
Okay. 4 years in the Army, and it was Army intelligence you went to, right? So I think that's at Fort Benjamin Harrison, is it not?
It's the intel school's now in a place called Fort Huachuca in the Arizona desert.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was that back in the day. It was there, but yeah.
All right. How long was that training?
I want to say it was officer basic course was around 6 to 8 months long.
Okay. Then after your officer basic, did you have any training after that, or were you deployed somewhere?
I went straight to my unit, and I was in 10th Special Forces Group. So I was in 2nd Battalion, 10th Special Forces Group was my unit.
Did you go through the Special Forces training?
No, I didn't. It was a weird program to where they were sending lieutenants straight out of officer basic course to Special Forces Group to work in their intel shops.
Now the 10th, what is their venue? Was it Afghanistan or Iraq? Or what?
The way they're broken up is they're supposed to all have geographical regions to cover, but with the global war on terrorism kicking off, everybody was rotating in and out of Iraq and Afghanistan. But 10th Group is known for covering Europe. Is their region.
When were you commissioned? When was your commission?
2003.
2003.
Mm-hmm.
So where did you go then after your offer? You were assigned to this unit.
Mm-hmm.
Geographically, where did you end up?
So it was assigned to 210, and then we went to Iraq. And my first deployment was to late 2004, November 2004 through June of 2006. So that was Operation Iraqi Freedom 3 during that time. And then we were...
You've had 3 of those?
Well, yeah, it's been, at the time it was only the third year that, but we were stationed, we were operating out of Mosul, Iraq.
Were you married at the time?
I was not.
Okay.
Well, I take that back. I think
you better get this part down.
we got a secret courthouse marriage before I left.
Really?
Yeah. So
down here in the courthouse?
No, in Colorado.
Colorado?
Yeah, because 10th Group's at Fort Carson in Colorado.
Okay. And nobody knew about it?
No, the families didn't know about it because we wanted to make sure if something bad happened to me that we were already engaged, and we had planned our wedding for when I got back from the deployment. We thought, well, if something worst case scenario, because if you're a girlfriend or a fiance,
You don't get
any of the
insurance.
benefits. So
Right.
we kind of got married in sweatpants at the courthouse. And then,
That's a good one.
Yeah.
You'll always remember,
Right.
don't you?
But our real wedding was here in town.
Okay.
And that was September 4th, 2005.
Was she from Portsmouth, you said?
She's from Portsmouth, yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
so she had to fly out there for you guys to
Yep.
get up there.
Mhm.
Okay, good deal.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Well, so now you're at Fort Carson,
Uh-huh.
and then your next, you go to Iraq from there.
Yeah, so we're stationed at Fort Carson. So I went from Fort Huachuca at the Intel school, then got to my unit at Fort Carson, and then we were in Iraq from the first deployment was to, like I said, November 2004 to June 2005.
So you were in Army intelligence then.
Mhm.
Intelligence.
Yep.
What can you tell me about Army intelligence? What do you do? What do you do?
So essentially our role is to collect, gather, and analyze intelligence on the enemy or target or whatever whoever the bad guy is at the time. And so you kind of, there's different disciplines of intelligence. So like imagery intelligence, signals intelligence, human intelligence.
Were you assigned to one of those?
My goal or my role was to kind of be a jack of trades in all of them.
Yeah.
And then I had guys that could specialists in each of those areas. Kind of like the most well-known one is human intelligence. So that's
Okay.
kind of where you're developing sources on the ground to go find out information of what's happening, and they come back and tell you all that stuff. Kind of, that's like the most well-known one.
Were you there when they found Saddam?
I think that happened right before we got there.
Okay.
I can't remember the exact date of when they pulled him out of the hole, but
Okay.
I don't think we were there during that time, or I was there during that time.
So you would fly in. Where did you go? You went from Did you fly all the way nonstop from Fort Carson?
We had a quick layover in Stuttgart, Germany,
Okay.
and then from Stuttgart right into Mosul.
When you come into Mosul like that, is that kind of scary in a way? I mean, it's a steep.
Yeah,
approach.
it's there's a lot of things going on. I mean, you've been in the back of a cargo airplane, and you're just kind of sprayed out on the floor, and you're kind of waiting to get there, and you've been in there for 20 some hours, and you land, and then you quickly realize you're in in a war zone.
Yeah.
And that back gate comes down, and I think we landed in the middle of the night or something. I can't remember.
What was the temperature?
It wasn't that bad. In November in northern Iraq, it was, I don't know, probably 50. It wasn't that bad at all.
Okay.
But then as soon as we landed, man, mortars and rockets are skipping overhead, and then
Really?
you're like, okay, well,
That got your attention.
yeah, we're in Iraq now. I guess this is, and then
Okay.
I'll never forget, just kind of look, seeing just go overhead and just watching them, that's not all right, it's time to move. We can't be sitting watching these things being lobbed.
So you got out in the middle of the night, and you saw and heard. What else did you see? Lots of lights. You're at a.
It's weird. It's almost like you're going into a different planet. There's everything's like a shade of brown or tan or gray. There's no hills. There's nothing that's green. And then you just kind of hop on a truck or a Humvee, because we landed in the airfield, which the airfield's inside of a secured compound. And then you're just you're on the vehicle right to go to your FOB, your forward operating base, and it's just nothing but at the time anyways, it was nothing but plywood huts and buildings and sandbags.
Were you right in Mosul, or you were at FO? You were at a
Yeah, so we were actually we're at the Mosul Army Airfield, and then we had our own compound kind of adjacent to the airfield.
How many were there on the plane with you?
Oh, I'd say maybe 40, 50.
40?
Yeah.
Were they all your unit? Or
Yeah, they were all our unit.
Oh, that's
yeah.
a whole unit then.
Yep.
Okay, so all 40 or 50 of you go to the same place.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. And you find a bunk and that's it, huh?
Yeah, pretty much like in how we were doing it is we'd be deployed 7 months. We'd come home for refit and retraining back to Carson and be deployed again for 7. On 7, off 7, on 7, off 7.
Oh.
So you'd always kind of swap out, like you'd swap out with at the time it was 5th Special Forces Group. So they'd be leaving and we'd be coming in, and you have this transition turnover period with them, and then boom, you're given, it's your ball to roll with, and then you give it back to them at the end of 7 months, and it keeps going that way.
Were you the commander of that unit, or?
No, I was,
or?
my role was, I worked for the main intelligence officer in the battalion. So my job was to kind of support all of the intelligence operations that we had going on across the battalion, and kind of help answer questions, figure more stuff out, and help our commander make the best decisions possible.
Did you go out in the field any, or did you?
Yeah,
Okay.
so my first deployment was more of a staff role, but we had, by virtue of being with the Special Operations Unit, you kind of get involved in all kinds of craziness, and then you're looking for excuses to get out of the wire, and
Wow.
but we had this weird kind of side job to where there were Albanian commandos attached with us as a part of NATO force, or however they were there, and then we'd kind of help train and develop these Albanian commandos in Iraq to go on essentially safety and security patrols adjacent to where the FOB was. So
How did you relate to them? They speak some type of Slavic.
yeah, luckily there is just one or two speaks English. One or two of our guys speaks broken.
Yeah.
I can't remember the title that they were of their language, and then you'd have an interpreter. So
How'd you get along with them? Okay.
oh, it was great. Like
Really?
yeah, I mean they're an allied partner there with us. And it's just one of those, it's more of a cultural experiment,
Yeah.
getting along with them than anything else. And, you go to the range and show them how to, they already know how to shoot, but like trading tactics back and forth and showing them how to patrol and all that stuff.
How about the Iraqis? How did you interact with them?
So that was another part of our mission. Was now we're talking, it's 2004, 2005. One of the main missions that we had was to train and develop Iraqi Special Operations Forces. So at that time, we were trying to get out of U.S.-led missions and then train and develop Iraqis to go and do their own operations. So we had the 36 commandos, they're known as ISOF, so just Iraqi Special Operations Forces. And then we had a couple of our companies that trained, developed, equipped them, got them up to speed, and then they go fight alongside them as they go on raids. So we were also, 10th Group had a long-standing relationship with the Kurds. When the war kicked off, it was crazy because this was my first deployment going on, but guys had already been there, and they were going on their second deployment now because they'd come down from Turkey into northern Iraq, into Kurdistan essentially, and were there with the Kurds. And as the main forces were coming up from the south, our guys were already in Kurdistan waiting to push down from the north with the Kurds and Peshmerga.
At that time, who are we fighting?
So at that
Who
time,
was the enemy?
so it was transitioning now. I mean, the Iraqi army just fell on its face when we came up, but what the unintended consequence was essentially, since we disbanded the Iraqi army and didn't allow them to stay as a standing force, a lot of them became insurgents. So either we at the time they were just known as AIF, so anti-Iraqi forces. So they were just majority of them used to be like in the Ba'athist Party, so that was Saddam's main political party, and the majority of all Iraqi army was loyal to Saddam, of course. So we were fighting them. We were the bigger enemy. The bigger enemy was Al Qaeda in Iraq. That was led by a guy at the time, Abu Musab al-Zakari. He was kind of like Al Qaeda's main guy in Iraq, responsible for all the terrorists and foreign fighters coming into Iraq. So they were all kind of lumped together in this big group, just known as anti-coalition forces or anti-Iraqi forces.
Did you get Iraqis cooperating with you though?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Absolutely. That was the only way you could do it, is by having support from them, and of course, like, that culture is so nuanced that as an American, you're not going to know just by talking or looking at somebody if they're Sunni or Shia, or if they're from southern Iraq, or if they're from Jordan or Saudi Arabia. So you have to rely on your host partners to help out. Did
your unit take any casualties?
That first deployment, we didn't. We had a pretty serious guy was shot up pretty bad, but that was the worst of
that first deployment.
Yeah, and we did things differently. Like we weren't like the 82nd or our first AD, who's like, those guys, God bless them, like they're the ones on the streets patrolling middle of the day out there, just, holding the line. We kind of had like a more specialized mission to where we'd only do operations and raids at night, and they were only, higher value targets, to kind of minimize that risk of casualties.
When you would go out at night, did you go into houses or bust into houses or stuff like that?
Yeah, so that was more like, so as the intel guy, our main job is to support the operators. So you'll hear the term A-team, and that stands for like Operational Detachment Officer. So that's like a special forces team, like a 12-man team. And they all had their Iraqi special operations counterparts. So our job was to get them the best and most current, most recent, most verified intelligence to kick to them for them to go action those targets. But yeah, so you just go, and then sometimes we would be a part of the raid because we knew the most about, John is connected to Jim, who is connected to Tim, and they all work for this IED manufacturer. And so we would be there, and then after the target was actioned, we'd go help kind of do what was called sensitive site exploitation. So if you just think about a drug bust, you go grab the computers and the cell phones and the notebooks, and you help get the bad guys off targets, and then start the interrogation process from them to kind of.
When you busted or went in a house like that, what would you typically see? What was the interior of their homes?
Just depending on where you went, they all kind of looked the same. They all in the neighborhood, depending on the neighborhood, they all had, big guarded gates up front. Everybody slept on the roofs, because in the summertime, like no one's sleeping in the house. The whole family's pretty much on the roof sleeping. But the thing that just sticks in my mind is everything was just like tan, brown, or gray. Like that's the main theme. Is like there was not much color. It was just a sand tan color kind of thing.
What are the smells like? Do you have?
Because of where we were, it's like whenever I smell diesel, that's what I think of. That's what I think of Iraq. Yeah, I mean, because like all the Humvees are operating on diesel, all the trucks are on diesel. But their food has a unique smell. You just kind of get used to being on base when you're not actually operating, and that's kind of what I think of as far as the smells go.
So your first deployment, and then you had a second deployment.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have casualties?
Yeah, unfortunately we had a guy. He was operating one of our teams in the southern part of Iraq. His name is Daniel Crabtree. We had a reserve special forces team with us. Actually 19th Special Forces Group. They're out of Huntington, West Virginia, believe it or not. And he was a part of them, but he was actually a cop up in northern Ohio. So he unfortunately lost his life in an IED attack. Yeah.
Okay. That was a big issue, IEDs.
Yeah, so that was the number one thing that gave me the pucker factor was it wasn't so much. I was more concerned about traveling during the day on the roads was the most dangerous part. When guys are hitting houses and stuff, like you're the aggressor. Mm-hmm. But man, the IED threat was just catastrophic during that time.
Yeah. Did you have a third deployment, you say? Or
just two. Yeah.
Okay. When you were over there, and when did you come back after that second deployment?
So I went to the second deployment. We were in Baghdad. That was January of 2006 to August of 2006. Mm-hmm.
What's Mosul like? What's the city like?
Mosul's up in the north, and believe it or not, like if you're along it goes up the Tigris River. And around the Tigris River is actually pretty green and lush. But the city itself, everything is just so packed tight on top of each other. But there's a big difference between Baghdad and Mosul.
What's Baghdad like?
Baghdad's just massive. I mean,
do they still have the cross sabers there?
Yeah.
Did you see those?
I have a picture. That was kind of the standard picture. If you were in Baghdad, you had to get a photo in front of the cross. That was like their parade grounds.
Yeah.
But yeah, Baghdad's just massive. An big time urban environment. It's just crazy how big that place is.
What's your impression of the people?
The people are great. I mean, they're just it's a Middle Eastern culture. When we were there, Saddam had been found and been killed, and he was a dictator for a reason, because he had to keep the lid on three different major demographics of people. You had the Kurds up north, the Shia were kind of down south and out to the east, and then you had the Sunni triangle, and of course Sunnis don't like Shia and vice versa. Kurds don't like any of them, but they all were kind of stuck in this land together, and Saddam ruled it with an iron fist. And when that went away, the minority Sunnis were in charge of the whole country, and when that went away, you now had Shia kind of wanting to take control back of their country, and then Of course, Sunnis didn't like that because now they were the minority and didn't have any power. But it was just trying to understand that, it's a different religion, it's a different culture. Things that make sense to us don't make sense to them, and vice versa. But at the end of the day, family is family regardless of Vietnam, Iraq, America. So that was kind of the...
Have you kept in contact with any of the guys you were in?
Yeah, my Army buddies, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, we kind of have a solid group of guys that we always keep in contact with.
Do you have meetings or just eat?
Mainly just digital.
Okay.
Yeah, because some guys are still in, other guys have retired and gone on. But we have just through text and social media, we keep pretty good contact.
What was your rank when you got out?
I was a captain.
And then, what medals and awards do they give for being?
You
do you
get oh shoot, I can't even remember all the stuff. ARCOM, MSM, Military Service Medal. You get your combat patch and your veteran of global war on terrorism, and all that stuff.
Did you carry what was your weapon that you carried?
So I carried long gun was just like an M4, and then sidearm was a 1911.
You still have your uniform?
I do, yeah.
Can you get in it?
I think I can squeeze into it a little bit. Yeah.
So you were 7 months there, and then you had 7 months back here, right? And that would be with your wife then, right?
Yeah.
That sort of thing. And by that time, everybody knew that you were married?
So the first time I came back in June of 2005, and we got married officially in September.
Where?
At Christ Community Church.
Christ Community?
Yeah.
Up the street?
Yep.
Okay.
We got married there, and then got in a U-Haul and took all her stuff out to Colorado.
Okay. Is there anything? What did you like Army life? Did you like the military?
I loved it. I had a pretty interesting job.
Yeah.
I got to work with a lot of agency counterparts, whether it was the CIA, DEA, FBI. They were all kind of over there, and if you're in the intel community, you kind of get to work with all those guys. I was really fortunate to get an assignment to a special operations unit. Not being a special forces tab guy myself, but that was the route I was going to go, because as an officer you can't go to selection until you're a captain.
Why did you get out then?
I got out because it was the best thing for my family.
All right.
So, because I knew the writing on the wall was what I did and what I wanted to do. It was going to be 7 months on, 7 months off. And it's crazy because guys that I were in with, that we were lieutenants, are like lieutenant colonels now, and we're talking 7-8 deployments
Really?
in that time between Iraq and Afghanistan. So I knew that wasn't going to be helpful. And I had already asked my wife. She stayed alone the first deployment. She then moved out there with me, and then was by herself during that second deployment. So she did her part, and now it's kind of like time for me to grow up a little bit.
Stop playing Army?
Stop playing Army. And I loved it. Like I tell people all the time, like as a young 20, in your young to mid 20s, you're literally in charge of life or death stuff. And that shapes your perception of what's really important in life. And I'm very glad to have that experience.
Did you bring back any souvenirs?
Yeah, it's just some stuff that we haggled out of the little Iraqi shops and marts there.
How are they to deal with? Do they?
Oh yeah,
are they interested?
it's like it's the typical haggling culture. Like that's you never pay for anything that they ask. Is they expect you to go back and forth, and of course you're insulting their family honors with all your offers that you're making, and it goes back and forth.
Are you a member of any veterans groups?
I think just on paper I'm a part of the Legion and the VFW, but
Down here?
Yeah, I don't participate in too much, unfortunately.
You say your dad was in the service too. Was that Vietnam?
Mm-hmm.
Vietnam?
Yep.
Okay. How about your grandfather? Do you know any of that?
I have uncles on my mother's side who served. During World War II, my mother's dad couldn't serve because he was working at the steel mill.
Oh yeah.
So they made sure they weren't letting those guys go into service because of producing all the steel here. But yeah, I've got several. I come from a pretty solid line of service.
What's your current occupation?
I'm a business owner here in town. I own a gym called PSKC CrossFit. I own another company called Doc Spartan. We make all natural grooming and skincare products.
How's that going?
Great. Yeah. It's very good. We kind of do everything. Everything's located in one big building down on 3rd and Court Street.
When you say men's grooming, what do you mean? Like hair?
So our what we're most well known for is our first aid ointment.
First aid. Mm-hmm.
Yep. So it's called Combat Ready Ointment. So it can be used on any variety of first aid needs.
Mm-hmm. Is that on the shelf somewhere in town?
Yeah, it's down at our building.
How about Kroger's and places like CVS?
Oh yeah, so we have we're in I don't know several different places throughout the country and small like independent shops, and we just I linked up with some old British veteran friends of mine, and we taught them how to make it over in London. So we have a little franchise. And
is it secret ingredients, secret sauce?
The ingredients aren't secret, but how we formulate it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
And now tell me about your gym. What do you do there? You work up a sweat?
Yes. We are a CrossFit gym, and
that's a chain, is it? CrossFit?
It's a affiliate, like the franchise.
I
So I started doing CrossFit in the military, and it was the strength and conditioning program that we used to prepare to go on deployments.
Okay.
So I first started getting exposed to that in 2007, and I just really fell in love with it. And then when I came back home, there was no one around doing it, so I just kind of started doing it here in Portsmouth.
You were on national TV, right?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
So we were on in 2017. We went on a program called Shark Tank, ABC's Shark Tank.
Shark Tank? All
Yep.
right.
And that's
You see those guys, all that, who's the bald-headed guy there?
his
Kevin.
name was Kevin. Yeah, he goes by Mr. Wonderful.
Mr. Wonderful.
Yeah, he was there.
Did you get something out of him?
Yeah, so we got a deal with Robert Hershevek.
Doing what?
To invest in Doc Spartan.
Doc Spartan, the grooming thing.
Yep.
Does he still have his finger in the?
Yep. So he's an active member and partner to this day.
Has he ever been down here to visit?
He's not. That's something we're
Get
working
down
on.
here.
Yeah, that's something we're working on this year.
You got to go see him.
Yeah, he's he's. Once we start making him millions and millions of dollars, he's a little more apt to come down here.
Pass through for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
That's a good show. I like
It was a fun experience being on the show.
All right. And now CrossFit. Who goes to CrossFit? You were on national program for that too, right?
Yeah, here recently we were featured on the Today Show.
Yeah.
because we partnered with a counseling center here in town, and they contracted to the gym to help run fitness classes for people struggling with addiction.
Okay.
So we started doing that. That's been going on for 14 months now.
Okay.
And then, they've seen a lot of success.
That's working out then?
Yeah, so it's kind of the missing, like it gives them a physical outlet to help their recovery. And essentially what we're doing is trading one addiction for another. So we're kind of getting them to get off the opioids and meth or whatever their drug of choice is, and then giving them a healthy outlet to really, because CrossFit's a pretty addictive kind of thing.
Is it? Do I want to go there?
Yes. The standard answer is yes.
Hey, I'm 75.
My mom, I just finished a class and came here.
Yeah?
My mom is 72 and she does it.
She's in the class?
She's in the class. Yeah.
How much can she press?
Depends on the day, I guess.
So you do have this program with the addicts. Is that voluntary on their part? Or?
Yeah, so it's highly encouraged, but you can't force anyone to work out. But what we find is, the people that really like it, really like it. They look forward to it. It gives them something it basically gives them a daily challenge to overcome.
How many do you have in the program at any given day?
Typically our classes, we run 3 classes a day, and we're right around 10 people per class.
Okay.
Yeah.
And those are 10 people, 30 people a day trying to kick the habit.
Yep.
Good deal. Any PTSD symptomatology or anything like that?
Not like you would think about it in the classic sense. What I struggle with more than anything was a sense of belonging.
Yes.
Because I came back to home in 2007, and I was working for the Department of Energy up at the A plant. So I was still working in the counterintelligence security arena, but was just very disconnected. I didn't feel a part of a unit, didn't really feel belonging to anywhere, and had spent 4 years at war, and came back home and just felt like no one even knew that we were at war. That was kind of more my issue.
How long were you there?
At the A plant?
Yeah.
So I worked full time from 2007 all the way through 2015, and then did the gym on the side, and finally quit there in 2015 and
went full time.
Went full time at the gym at Doc Spartan from there. But yeah, that was kind of more my issue other than PTSD.
Do you have anything else you'd like to tell us about? Anything?
I'm trying to think.
We'll both think of stuff.
Yeah. No, I mean, it was just that the second deployment to Baghdad was, we really, my mission there became more training and developing the Iraqi counterterrorism force, their intel side of the house, and really got kind of a cool experience. Got to work with different members of the special operations community, and really kind of working hand in hand with the Iraqi counterparts during that time. And that was the 05-06 time frame in Baghdad was that was the height of the sectarian war when Sunnis and Shias were going against each other, and that was a crazy time to be there.
Did you ever meet anybody famous over there? How about some of these generals?
Dick Cheney called in.
He called in.
He called in. The unit did a raid, and the unit did a raid in a Shia dominated area, and at the time, well, still to this day, there's a it's called Mahdi militias. This Mahdi's army, and went in there, and they're just bad guys doing bad stuff up and down, like torturing people and this whole deal. And we finally had an actual target and went in there and killed a bunch of bad guys. And of course, they immediately went on their propaganda machine and said the U.S. forces had gone in there and massacred innocents and this, that, and the other. And that was kind of hitting national news. And then Dick Cheney literally called into the operations center.
You talked to him?
I didn't talk to him, but he had called in wanting to know what had happened. And luckily, we had evidence and video and everything, backing us up. So they were just basically completely spinning it and lying. But yeah, that was kind of the highest level.
You ever meet Petraeus?
I didn't meet Petraeus. He wasn't around. I'm trying to think if anybody. No.
How, I guess the word I'm thinking of is authentic. You saw American Sniper, that movie.
Yeah.
How authentic do you believe that was?
As far as the backdrop and the landscape, that stuff was all nailed down pretty. That gives you a solid oh, that looks like Iraq.
Okay.
Hollywood always kind of exaggerates, and their job is to make a good movie, not necessarily tell the truth. So I actually got to meet Chris Kyle's parents.
You did?
So they were portrayed in the movie.
Was that after he was killed?
Yeah, after he was killed. So every summer or every spring in Texas, there's a Chris Kyle Memorial benefit.
Right.
And I do some work with veteran causes and through a nonprofit, and they asked us to come down and be a part of it. And specifically the movie American Sniper, Chris Kyle was a legend. He was a highly revered individual and a legend in that community, and his parents are some of the nicest people I've ever came
You ever
across.
meet his wife?
I didn't meet his wife. I met his brother, who was in the movie as well. But they were just and all his kind of SEAL team buddies came down. But just really good people.
Dale, thanks a lot.
Thank you. I appreciate being asked to come on. Thank you, sir.